Welcome, everyone, to the Rise podcast. Kwesi Millington here. I'm here with my guest, and I hope I say this name correctly, Sri Mahabir. And I'm going to read her intro just because we met on Instagram. And of course, like most people in social media now, we meet, we become friends online, and we haven't met in person yet. But I love your story. Thank you for being on here. I'm going to read your intro first and then we'll get started. So, Sri Mahabir refused to let her camera shyness get in the way of being able to share the stories of other entrepreneurs and her story. In April of 2020, Sri created the Instagram live series Journey of an Entrepreneur. After interviewing 100 entrepreneurs, she realized her passion. Sri helps entrepreneurs to be able to face their camera shyness, which I'm sure a lot of people have to deal with, and help build visibility to build their brand and business. Thank you, Sri, for being on the podcast.
Well, thank you so much for having me on, Kwesi. It's an honor. It's real funny. We just met after one live I did with, I think it was Stephanie. And the next thing you know, we were best friends. We were in the DMs.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. We live in direct message, we create community. And I was on Steph's podcast, as you mentioned, and I heard you on there and you just mentioned something about your past and I just clicked into resilience. So I know this is what you do now. You're empowering other people, entrepreneurs, to get over their shyness, being confident. And I love your brand. I love your messaging. Take me back to when you weren't so confident, when you had things going on in your life. There was something that you mentioned on the live with Steph about your past relationship and family life. Can you just explain how you got here today?
So I was in an abusive relationship at 18. And again, when I was in my 20s with, and he was the father of my child. So sitting there realizing like, this is not for me. I got past it the first time. I survived the first one, but then I was in another relationship again. And I had a daughter. And I said, you know what? This is not what I want her to see, how her mother is living and breathing. This is not how a woman should live her life, always in constant fear, always feeling like she is not enough. So surviving that, the rape, the abuse, going past that, then standing on my own, raising this little child because her father left. He didn't leave. He got deported to Trinidad. So now I'm here alone with her. And it was a lot, I won't lie. And then in 2018, when he passed, his family disowned her, which was really shocking to me because I said, well, how is that possible that a 16-year-old has to face this? But I always used to say, how could he have left nothing? Well, he left. He just knew. I remember a family member of his telling me, I was asking like, how could he just live his life knowing that he has a child in another country? How could he just leave without leaving something behind? And what was told to me was he always knew you would take care of her. You would never allow her to be caught in something. He would never allow anybody to do anything. He just knew she was in good hands. So I was like, I do agree. Because thinking
Absolutely.
about it, I'm like, I do agree because I had her young. I had to like learn really quick. I was 22 when I had her. I was in college. Like I literally had to figure this all out. And it was a bunch of college friends and I raising my daughter.
Mm.
And then I moved to Houston and it was my parents helping me, giving that stability while I was trying to build stability, making decisions for her. So it was always looking at like, what would I do differently for her than what I had? And that was stability. So even in when her father passed and it was difficult and at times she still faces it, the one thing that I've been doing is I've taken that step in working on myself, healing my inner child. It is a constant battle between myself and where I was and where I'm wanting to go. And that has helped with my daughter and our relationship because it could be turmoil, it could be like that, where both of us are butting heads, but here we are talking about it. And how this relates to what I do today is because when I decided to get in front of the camera, it was because when I started my business in 2019, after he passed away, her father, I had to think about, well, what can I leave behind? Because a 9 to 5 is not something you can leave behind. You
Mm.
can leave a legacy with your business. You can leave a legacy with video, but not even video was not something on my mind. It was more about, here is a business I can leave behind. So when I started it, it was all about, he get the testimonials. Then it was placed on my heart, hear their journey. Now I'm like, I don't have a studio. I don't have equipment. I don't have lighting. I don't have nothing. Then the pandemic hits and I'm like, how do I bring visibility? Because I can't do in-person networking events. How do I connect with people? Next thing I know, I see my friend doing Instagram lives, interviewing people. And I was like, that's what I will do. And so I asked 9 people, and probably by the time that this is out, maybe it'll be a week before or the week of, but on April 21st, 2020 was my first time going live on Instagram with a guest that I had only built a relationship like a few months prior. I was interviewing her, and that was the debut. And 2 years later, it has expanded to now LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook, Twitter. I have a second live podcast and show on LinkedIn. It's called Sip and Chat with my co-host Charlene. And then I do Instagram lives with Russ and Scott on Wednesdays. And then I have another show I do on Instagram with Karina Lai. And this is all because I just said, you know what? When I first started, it was about the guest. And then it went to, you have something of value, facing that I am enough. Because as you can tell from my story, from what has happened, that feeling of not having value or being enough really did play a big part, especially like after you hit a certain number of interviews, you realize like, well, how does this fit in for me? Like, how do I bring value to others? It's not just about the guest. It's about, what are the questions that I ask? How do I present them? But then what about you? You have something too. There's a story behind interviewing people. Some of them never did a live. Some of them never did video, walking them through being able to do it. And then just learning, there's a system, there's a process. Like, when you book a guest, you think that they would remember that they're going live with you, but you have to have systems in place so that you can limit the amount of no call, no shows, getting those people to change, especially like when you book them, you kind of know ahead of time what to expect. That's a tip for anybody. When someone says tentative, that means you need to make sure you remind that person a
Of
few
course,
times
of
before
course.
they cancel, and remind them, hey, you can be anywhere. This won't take too much of your time. We can make this happen.
Absolutely. And yeah, to that point, you were super responsive with me. You booked right away. You sent me all your information, and you made this process easy. Thank you. And I want to ask you a little bit more about your past, if you don't mind. Because some of my listeners, they want to know about, okay, building resilience, and I've had other guests on who've had somewhat similar backgrounds to yours, and I just want to get your perspective on it. When you met the father of your daughter,
Mm-hmm.
where were you as far as a self-worth perspective, and what do you think led you to get in a relationship with this person?
So looking back, I was young. I was 19 when I met him. And 1920, when I met him, I was just not sure. So I had a brother and he was murdered and I found him. So here I am, I'm still trying to deal with all of that. I didn't know how to deal with that. And every time his birthday would come, I still would have so much emotions because I didn't know how to process this. He passed away when I was 11 and he was 14. It was a
And you
youth.
said you found him?
Yes.
Oh,
I
wow.
came home and I found him. So
Shoot.
this
Okay.
is all of this was new, even to the county we lived in, to the point that my family, my grandmother actually passed away because she couldn't handle that kind of news. Like there was a lot that happened. My
Mm.
mom not only lost her son, she lost her mother within a few months span. So there was just a lot that I had not really processed. And my parents, they
And at
had,
11 years old, you're dealing with this. Wow.
yes. So
Okay.
there's just a lot that went through. And now here I am now in my teens, I left Houston. I went to Miami because I also claim Miami is my home. So I've been going to Miami since I was like 3 weeks old, 2 weeks old, because that's where my aunt is, my mom's elder sister.
Mm.
So I actually left Houston because I was leaving an abusive relationship to Gaithersburg, where then I ended up in Miami because it was all family that I was, the family network. But
Nice,
when I
nice.
ended up in Miami, I still, looking back, I really wasn't processing everything. I hadn't really processed that this is not a healthy relationship. Why? Because this is where I found comfort, because this is what I was seeing in my own house between my parents. So a lot of times we have to think about, like, and realize this, from the time that you're in your mother's womb until, like, and you'll hear different ages, 7 to 9, you're recording life and then you're living it. So when I look at where I was at 19, 20, this was just comfortable for me to be in this relationship with this man who was, when looking back, he would never have been on my radar, just because he was toxic. He was not emotionally available. He needed help too.
And is
And
this something that you noticed from the very beginning when you met him, or did it
no,
happen later on?
this happened years later. Because when I met him, it was like, oh, I really like his style. I like his swag. I like the way that he is. But my friends and family, and a lot of my friends were telling me, like, hey, this dude is not good. Leave
Mm.
him alone. And I was the type of person, I always saw the potential. So I was fantasizing the perfect him, when really the him that is here today is just not. It's not somebody I should have been with. I'm
Mm.
not saying that it started off that he was abusive to me. It started off with, we would argue, we would, it escalated right after I had my daughter, the first time he hit me. Prior to that, it was, he just didn't touch me. We would argue, he was emotional, but he never touched me. So, because of my previous relationship, I remember that guy would be high and drunk and in a state of mind where he would hit me. And so that's when I realized, like, okay, this is not the situation I want. But then again, I went back to what I was familiar with, which is, here's this man who's accepted me. I don't think I have enough of value to give to others. So this is where I need to be, because there's nothing better out there. But in reality, when I look back, I'm like, nah, sis, you should have taken some time, step back, did the healing. Then you probably would not have been with that guy at all. If even if I was with the guy and I started with the healing, I would have left him alone and went off, because I actually did start seeing a counselor when I was married to him, because at school, the university I went to, they offered free counseling. So that was able to get through the things that I was feeling. And the first few sessions, I was with a male, and he had a problem with that. So I had to get a female.
Okay.
So, but I still did the healing journey. And then that was my first time saying, okay, I need to face something. My marriage is not, I'm not happy where I'm at in my marriage. And a lot of the energy, and looking back, a lot of what I was feeling has transferred to my child. Because now when I see her and I'm like, she has all these doubts and she has all these worries, I'm like, oh man, that's what I was going through. And so I would, tell people, sometimes we need to take a step back and we need to focus on our healing first before we can pour into others. And it is being selfish, but it's being selfish in a good way, because
Yeah.
now you're focusing on your energy what are you giving out and how you see the world? Because now I'm not seeing it from the perspective of, I'm jealous of this girl, or I don't like, all of that I went through. I look back and I'm like, where I'm at today and where I was in my 1920s, such a different person
Mm.
because of that healing.
Because you had that time to heal. So you were with your second abusive relationship, you had your daughter, you started going to therapy while you're still with this person. When was the moment that either you said enough or he left? When did you have that final split?
So it was Mother's Day in 2003, and there was a lamp next to me, and so the lamp fell on my daughter's foot, and I didn't know. She screamed, and I was like, "What happened?" It actually burned her foot, so we had to take her to the hospital, and then I had to take her to the doctor. But like a day or two later, he got so mad and he hit me, and I was like, "What? This is crazy." I actually stabbed him with the pen. I was like,
Okay,
"You are
there's so much there. So he got mad at you because you took your daughter to the hospital? Like, what was he mad about?
He was mad because he was like, you didn't realize that she was that the lamp had fell on her foot." And I was like, "But you were right next to me.
Hmm.
You were arguing with me for something stupid." And I just, in self-defense, I stabbed him with a pen. So I was like,
Hmm.
"We're not doing this." And then a few days later, it just escalated. That our argument kept going. We lived with his family. They always sided with him. He started throwing my stuff out of the house. Like it was just so bad. And so I called my friend, and my friend told me, because even in November, Thanksgiving time, right after my daughter was born, I actually left and I went to Houston, and I still came back. Like I just was like, I want to try to work it out with him because
And what goes through your mind to make you say that? Is it still the fantasy of I can change him? Just from someone on the outside who may not understand why you would go back.
I left because it was so bad. Like I had bruises and everything. I showed somebody at work, and they told my manager, and she was like, "You need to leave. You need to take your stuff, take your car, and leave." But instead, I went to Houston and I got a job there. I transferred and I worked there, but I just was like, I felt like, okay, it's gonna get better. Time away has helped. Now he realizes I have school, I have to finish. Like I was in this fantasy land of like it would get better. Instead, it got worse. And there were moments where he would get angry with me, and I remember to this day, he was choking me. He ripped my chain. His brother-in-law walks in, sees it, goes back out. Then like the next day or 2 days later, they get in an argument, and he's like, "You're not going to talk to my wife," which was his sister, "the way you talk to your wife." This is his brother-in-law telling him,
Hmm.
"You can't talk to," like he was telling him, "You can't talk to your sister the way you talk to your wife." So you knew that this was going on. All of you did. And
Hmm.
you didn't do anything. And then that day, and after Mother's Day, I was like, my friend told me, she's like, "If I come, you're leaving, and you're leaving him for good. You're not going back to him, because you're never going to get another chance like this from me." And that was my ride or die friend. And so she helped me. She picked me up. I left with whatever I could. And I couldn't take my daughter. The next day, I went back and I got my daughter with the cops. And then I had to go back again and get all my stuff from him with the cops. Like I had a restraining order. It was like crazy. When I tell my story to people that I had to go back with the cops, I had to have my friends, they're like, that usually happens to men, not females, because the men are asked to leave, not the female. But I actually had to do it that way. And I was just like, this is crazy. After that, it was always him stalking me. He would stalk the people. He would cut the tires or slash the tires of the people that I would stay with, because I was trying to hide from him. I couldn't leave the state because we had this restraining order and he had to see his daughter. Like it was just, and then he placed a restraining order on me. And I was just like, but for what?
Yeah.
For what? What did I do to you?
And then eventually he moved back to Trinidad. Like, how long after that did he move back?
So it got worse when I thought it was going to get better. It got worse. He just would show up wherever I was. He would always be wherever I was. He would stole my car, cut the wiring under the engine, or then he stole stuff from me. He came to, so he was still here in this country, and I was like, okay, we're still technically married. Maybe I can, he still, we still had to go to immigration. He didn't have his papers. He was illegal here. So I was just like, okay, I have a choice. And this is me on the day of. I'm like, I have a choice. And whatever choice I make, I'm going to have to live with it. Either I go through with this or I don't. So we get to the meeting. He said something to me, and I was like, I don't want to live like this anymore. And I told the guy, the officer in the immigration meeting, I said, yes, we are married. Yes, we have a child. But no, I do not want to file for him. I do not want to have anything to do with him. And I looked at him, I said, you need to figure it out.
Oh, to stay in the country, you mean?
Yeah. I said, you
Oh,
need to figure it out. It has nothing to do with me. You're not living like this. So then the officer said, well, he was already flagged. We can't do anything. Because he had already had a DUI. He had like, now he had the restraining order. And that day he went crazy. And I was dating somebody who actually said, you know what, I'm not tolerating this. My friend who I lived with, she wasn't tolerating it. I mean, it just was just escalating to the point where I was like, I don't even know if I will live to see the next day, because this guy is just crazy. I mean, I would go a week and it would be like, I can breathe. And then the next week would just be complete horror and terror, because he would get emotional and and I understand he was dealing with his emotions of what was going on. But at the same time, I was not the reason. You're not looking at yourself. So when he got, I don't know if he was deported, I can't really confirm anything, but I just know he was gone. Because his mom called, because I was trying to arrange, when is he going to pick up the baby? And his mom was like, he's no longer here. He's deported. That's what she said.
I think you said something very important there, that you said that it wasn't you, because a lot of people in these types of situations can also blame themselves. But you said his actions, or what he's doing, it's not you, it was him. It's something going on within him. Do you think that that's something that a lot of women don't get? Do they think it's them?
Always. I didn't think that it was, for a long time, I always thought it was me. I own what I did, and I leave with him his own grievances, his own healing, because that's him. That has nothing to do with me. I own that I wasn't emotionally available to him. I own that I was, putting him in situation, making him feel bad. But at the same time, I was taking care of what I needed to for my daughter, for us. I mean, at one point I was pregnant, working 2 jobs and going to school. And I was helping to clean in the house because his family did not respect me. They said because I did not cook, that was not, I wasn't doing anything in the house. Wow. So I was like, I can't win with these people. I can't win with my husband. This is just not the way I want to live. Nobody should. And when I left, I had to reprogram. I mean, it was a lot. I had a lot of, issues, self-doubt. Since then, I've had not physical, but I did have another, verbally abusive relationship. But I realized even at that point, I was like, I should have gotten out of that earlier. Now with Savina's dad, it was that, okay, when we stopped, he was not here anymore. I could breathe. It did not take me until I was about to be 40 that I realized like things just started to hit me, especially after her father passed away. Things started to hit me hard. A relationship that I was in didn't work out. And I was just like, this has to change. I'm about to hit 40 and I don't want to live the rest of my life like I did the first 39 years.
So that was like your epiphany moment, right? Where you're just like, something's got to switch. And
Something that
what do you think made you hit that? Did you see something? Did you read something? Or did that just come to you?
I was so sad about the relationship I was out of. I was like, I was doing this right stuff. I thought I was. I thought that I was even listening to Matthew Hussey, all these gurus about how to date, how to flirt, and it wasn't working. And I was like, what's wrong? And I was feeling like I used to always feel like somebody was missing me. And then her father passed away. And then it was like, there's just this up and down in the way I feel. And like, it was just really taking over. And I said, I need to get help. Something's got to change. And then I was listening to Soulful Conversations with Oprah Winfrey. And at that time, that was my first, like, okay, podcast. Let me listen to them. Let's see. And a lot of it helped because she would talk about things like, okay, when you have your children, she had somebody who was an expert. We live vicariously through our children, things that we didn't do, but they don't necessarily want to do. And the reason why they push our buttons is because they are us. They are a part of us. And then she had Eckhart Tolle. And man, that was the moment when he started saying,
Yeah, I love
no.
Eckhart.
I think
Yeah.
about that day because I'm like, gosh, I was I was in I was doing food delivery. And it was like one of the lowest moments of that thought. He said, working your mind out is like working your body out because you realize it takes a lot of strength to get through what you're going through. And I said, you know what? I need help. I really need help. And so I went and I sought out for a therapist that helped me get through that moment. And that's when I said, I'm so glad I'm doing this journey. And so it started with the therapy and it started with then I found a coach which did an 8-week program where we went through healing, like deep healing. And then with the pandemic, I had to be with my family and I had to tell them like everything that I had dealt with from my brother and what he did to me to like, even my parents. I'm like, emotionally, I have to leave this with you. Then my therapist started having group therapy sessions where we would be able to see in a deeper side of our stories, our family lines, like what's going on with that. And so I was like, I will commit to go into this because then that way I can help myself. And then came mindset coaching, I met a mindset coach who's my really good friend, more like family. I started working with her. That was in 2021. My daughter was actually, I sent her, because in 2020, 2021, she had the option to go to school in person or do online. So I asked her, she decided to do online. So I asked her, would you like to, my cousin asked her, not me, to come to North Carolina. So I said, go. That way you have time to see what it's like to be away from us. During that time, I started really heavily working on my mindset. And my daughter started facing things on her own. And we would talk and I would listen and I would admit to things that I had done in my past that I apologized to her. And she was like, Mommy, you're so different. You're just so different. I can feel it and I can see it. And so then I said to her, well, would you like a counselor? Would you like to talk to somebody?
Mm.
Would you like to be able to help yourself get through things? She's like, yeah. So she started, I found her somebody different than who I was working with. And then
And
she
how old
had
is she
her,
now?
she is now, when she started, she was 18. She's now 19. She
Mm.
stopped for a while, but now she's coming back. But our relationship became like different. I also added into all of this, Increase Your Impact by Justin Sua. He does like 1 to 5 minute podcast episodes, and every day was something different, and that helped. So here I am, I'm compounding, I'm reading books, Atomic Habits by James Clear. um
And I think that's so key. I mean, just you just had a moment, and thank you for sharing that with me when you had that moment with Oprah and Eckhart Tolle, the teaching there. You have so many people you've leaned on, coaches, counselors, mentors, and uh, can you talk about the importance of reaching out when you are struggling to
mhm.
find people that do know more than you? Because it seems like that is what saved you.
it it did. I mean, because you're not alone. I've even when my daughter went to college in August of 2021, that hit me really hard. I cried every day, every day. I didn't care if I was at work, at grocery store, driving, even live. I was crying
Just because you missed her?
because I realized her impact of her in my life and how she saved me. And
How did she
so,
save you?
because I know I would have gone a destructive path had she not been born. I never understood why. I was like, why did I have her so young?
Hmm.
Why her? And now I understood when she left. I was like, whoa, she was there for me more than I was there for her at the time I needed her. And so I
Give you
actually
like a
did.
purpose, a driving purpose to get better for, to be a better person for, to try to be the parent you try to be
Yeah,
a better parent for her.
right.
Um,
And I failed many times. I don't think I did it.
we all do. I have a 2-year-old son. I get it. We all fail from time to time. I love what you said about her saying, "Mommy, you're different." And it sounded like it's when you started to share with her, "Hey, listen, I'm sorry I did these things," and I like to say, I mean, a friend of mine says, we always show our Superman or Wonder Woman to our kids, like we know it all. But when you show the Clark Kent or the Diana Prince, not that superhero version of yourself, you connect. Would you say that that played a huge role in her saying you're different, or what do you think that was? Why did she say that?
I was just talking to her because she was feeling a certain kind of way, and I shared something with her. I just remember we were just talking. She was going through a moment, and I was allowing her to be her. No judgment,
Hmm.
just listening and doing my best not to come and try to save her. But I was allowing her to walk through, and I said, I have to apologize, this, and this. And she was like, wow, you're just different, Mom. You'd never have apologized for that. And I said, you have to learn how to ask for help. So fast forward to when she was gone, I had a moment where I was like, I don't have anybody. There's nobody around me. I don't want to bother this person or that person. And I was spiraling down real quick. It was bad. Next thing I know, she called and I said, answer that phone. Just answer that phone and talk to her. Don't care that it's your daughter. Just answer the phone. And so I was like telling her, this is how I'm feeling. This is what's happening. And she stayed on the phone with me until I was feeling better. And I actually posted it on Instagram. I was like, I'm so scared to share this side of me, but you know what? I'm not invincible. And I started sharing that. I never received as many text messages, DMs than I had that day. Like, everybody said, do not feel that way. You can always reach out to me. I'm always here for you. I I didn't know, because at the moment, when you get in that moment, you're like, oh my God, I can't reach out to anybody. Next thing you know, your community's telling you, I'm here for you. you did, and it was just real funny because I
That's
was
a
like,
beautiful thing, right? I mean,
yeah,
yeah,
it's
you
funny and
serve them and they're
beautiful.
serving you now, right?
Yeah, and I
Yeah.
just didn't expect it, but I was like, I can imagine when you feel alone and you feel like, oh, I don't want to bother that person. Oh, I don't, just pick up the phone. It may take you a few people, but the act of actually picking up the phone, doing the dialing, that takes a lot. Because when you're in that state of mind, it's like, God. And I understand the spiraling, which helps me to be able to, when I'm coaching somebody, when they're feeling like, I don't feel like I can do this, I don't know how I can be here, understanding like, okay, you just know I'm always here for you. I'm always here to talk, no judgments, and never feel like you can't reach out. And that's the biggest thing I say, because I know what it's like. I've been there before. And I always think about every situation, every storm we go through, every experience we learn from, it's for a reason. God has a big plan. Like I always think about that. Like everything leads to something bigger. You never know what it is, but you're like, okay.
It's gonna happen. So talk about that now. You've gone through all this, and what made you decide that you now want to coach people and talk about what you do now?
So I had always been coaching people because when you go live, and then I would always select, it's always real funny. I always selected people who never went live before. And it just always happened that way. That's who I was drawing in. And because they never did a live or video, I'm here coaching them like, hey, this is what you can do, helping them with their confidence, helping them understand how to answer the questions, how to present themselves, the tips that I would provide for them. Now, when I started working with my mentor back in June, that's when she was like, if you don't like doing the virtual assistant, what do you like doing? And then she said, well, start this business, video content coach, where you can help solopreneurs, small entrepreneurs, small business owners, entrepreneurs be able to gain the confidence to get on camera so they can share their build visibility to their brand and business. And at the time, I was just like, okay, let me gain confidence to show up for myself first on LinkedIn, because my 9 to 5 didn't know I had this going on. And when I started building my presence on LinkedIn, that's when in December, this June is when I started, and December is when I got laid off, 9 days before Christmas.
Oh, Jesus.
So, and I learned later it was because of my presence on LinkedIn, my lives. There was just too many things that they weren't comfortable with. And on top of it, I was not even a competitor to them.
Mm. Yeah, that they were intimidated by something, but you know what? It's part of your purpose to do what you do now. Has that contributed to your healing, like going live and coaching other people? Like, how does that relate to helping you as well? I'm sure that you get something out of it.
When I help somebody, it helps me see like, oh wow, they're growing, they're seeing their beauty that they have, or that their story has value. They're creating, they're just out there doing it. As far as my healing goes, it's like I could tell when someone is a little off, or maybe this is just the way they are, or I'm just waiting for them to tell me the truth. Because sometimes you don't want to admit the truth to yourself. Like another person can see it. And that was something I learned on my own. I had Others could see something was wrong. I had to admit to myself something was wrong. And so, like, to answer your question, what comes up when I help others is just like, okay, maybe we need to step back, because that's what I would need. Maybe they need more. They'll tell me what they need. They
Yeah.
will always tell me what they need. It's just being patient and being in that space and energy of, here I am and I can receive anything. And that was not something I was before. And I feel like in coaching, that's the kind of energy we should have. The being able to create that atmosphere, that energy of, I am here to give and I am also here to receive. It's a two-way street. So There's no judgment. I'm not going to be mad if you don't do the work. I will hold you accountable. But at the same time, the only person you are disappointing is yourself. Because I've been in situations where the coach, although I'm very thankful for them, there were also really good learning lessons I learned about what can happen when you don't do the work to heal yourself. What can happen how you see the world when you're immature about certain things.
Mm.
And how, later on they're looking to see what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, and then it's made you a better coach. Your life experience and also hiring other people has helped you to be better at what you do. I guess I want to ask a question as we're getting to the end here. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I want to ask if someone's in a situation, whether it's an abusive relationship or just some situation they want to get out of, that can apply to a lot of things. What's the first step if they feel stuck that they can't escape or they keep staying in a situation that they know they shouldn't be in?
You have to ask yourself why. Because I understand sometimes getting the courage takes a lot. And then do a little bit of research and look for the help. It's out there. There's a lot of help out there. And you have to be willing. If you decide that you're going to leave, you have to commit to it. There's no turning back. It was very hard to leave my ex-husband. And that guy was, I loved him so much, but I was tired of being hurt. I was tired of being saw as less than. I was tired of just living a life of always being afraid, like this guy's going to do whatever he wants and get away with it. I just was tired. And so, in many of us, if we're in that situation, we get to a point where it might, in especially abusive relationships, could be too late. You're afraid that this guy is going to find you. There's a lot out there to help you, and it's not easy, but once you do, you can. You don't have to die living because you're so scared to leave, because this guy is going to be like, oh, or this woman could be like, oh, I love you, I miss you. Because you have to remember, it's not about you. They're dealing with their own stuff, and they're seeing something within you that they're jealous of, or they're angry that you have, or maybe they're bringing in something from their past and they're channeling it on you. You have to recognize it's not you, it's them. And then you have to work on yourself and say, do I deserve this? Do I need this? Does this serve me? And it doesn't. And you got to do your own healing, because then you don't want to bring that to other people as well.
Perfectly answered. One more question before we finish off here. Thank you for sharing, by the way. Someone who is like yourself, they've started a business, but they don't want to put themselves out there. What would you give, maybe one piece of advice to that shy entrepreneur?
Ooh, I love that, because I was shy. And I always say, what do you have to lose by putting your story out there? What do you have to lose? You could share what you're comfortable with and put it out. And if nobody likes it, it's okay. You keep connecting, keep engaging. But remember, what do you have to lose by trying, by putting the effort? Like I will tell you, I have nothing to lose in this podcast. What I shared, the tears. See, at the end of the day, I know I'm speaking to one person, and that person is myself. Because the next time I hear this podcast, when I truly need it, that's going to matter the most.
Beautiful. Thank you. And one fun question before we finish. Your intro to your very unique branded intro to your videos. Can you do it and tell us why you do it?
Well, welcome, welcome, welcome. So after my first 50 lives, when you start going live, you start doing videos, you have to realize they're not going to be great. It becomes practice. So one of the things that I did was I learned, what can I do to grab people's attention? What can I do that will be a signature brand of myself? And so I started really analyzing different people's intros. And that's when I found away. And I was like, you know what? Let me try this. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
I
And
love
it
it.
just stuck. And next thing I know, that's just who I am. And it's every video. I always do it with my lives, not on video. I haven't really done it too much on LinkedIn, but I should do it. I'll just start off with it. Who cares?
Yeah, you're the welcome, welcome, welcome lady. So, thank you for your time, Sri. I mean, I appreciate you going through your story. I appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate what you do for other people, your space you're taking in this world, and I'm sure your daughter appreciates it, and all the people that you coach appreciate it as well. How can people get a hold of you, find you, connect with you?
Thank you again for having me. And thank you to you who is listening to this podcast until this point. You can find me on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And just message and say, hey, I heard you on this podcast with Kwesi, so that I know that you listened to it and share something that you took away from it. I'd love to know.
Perfect. And I'll put your handles in the show notes. Thank you very much, Sri. And I look forward to us meeting at some point one day in person. And thank you for sharing today.
Thank you.